Hi, this is Maralyn Hill of Where and What in the World. I'm in Dunkeld, Australia, which is part of Victoria and the Grampian region. And today we're at the Royal Mail Hotel and going to interview Executive Chef Dan Hunter. Dan is also manager of the hotel and he's preparing a 12-course dinner for us this evening, which will consist of the photos you're seeing now. The Royal Mail has had 2 chef's hats awarded the past 3 years since Dan's been there. This is quite an achievement, as that's a very important designation in Australia. So let's get on to interviewing Dan and seeing what he has to say.
Basically went overseas, went to England for a little while and basically told people that I was a chef already and got some work and just cooked out of cookbooks, like looked at cookbooks and cooked out of cookbooks whilst working as a chef, and then came back to Australia when I was about 22, 23, and then at that point decided to get serious about it and went back and did a whole apprenticeship.
And how long have you been here?
We've been here now for 3.5 years. Was in Spain for 4 years and then came back to Australia. Was in Melbourne for about 5 months. Originally from Melbourne and wanted to be in Melbourne, and got a phone call out of the blue to come and have a look at this property here, and really had no intention really of coming here, and that was 3.5 years ago.
And now you have 2 hats.
Now we have 2 hats. Importantly, we won Restaurant of the Year last year in the Food Guide, and we've managed to win Regional Restaurant of the Year every year in those 3 years for the Gourmet Traveller magazine, which is probably the only national guide at the moment in Australia. So we're definitely being recognised for our hard work, and it's nice sometimes.
However, the hard work comes with leadership, and you're obviously leading the kitchen with your own creativity.
All things that are successful have a driving force behind them, whether it be, a human force, and for us, it requires a really strong commitment and passion to what we do, and I'm heavily committed to that. I think what we do is something very unique, not just for Australia but internationally, to be so far from a city and do the type of food that we do. And I think we do something which is quite relevant for the moment that we live in. I think we're very much of the time,
Yes, you raise your own vegetables here.
Exactly.
You have free-range chickens.
That's a very important shift happening in almost consciousness at the moment internationally, with where, people wanting to know where food's coming from, and people more and more interested in, provenance almost of food. And I think that we have a team which is also committed to the philosophy of what we do, and that makes a big difference in carrying out my ideas.
When you're not working, which I know with chefs those are very limited hours, but where do you go to eat?
It's funny, I think for me, the longer I cook, the more interested I'm interested in the extreme top end. Where this very thin band of restaurants that exist across the world, which we consider to be the best restaurants with the best chefs and the best equipment, and probably have the most interesting grip on technique, and have the best access to product. Hopefully a restaurant not unlike our own. But I'm also interested in very basic things as well. I think for me, it's funny because I love Japanese food. I've never been to Japan still, but for me, the aesthetic of Japanese food and the simplicity and the control of the depth of flavour they have is quite incredible. My wife's family's Italian, and we have a big vegetable garden here. We also have a vegetable garden at our house, and I've just had 3 weeks holiday. We just had a baby.
I understand.
So
you just had a baby, a little boy or girl?
A little girl. Yeah, Ivy, her name is. So I've been home for 3 weeks, and just literally, for 3 weeks, cooking from our own garden every meal, and cooking over fire at home, cooking meat from local producers, whatever. It's like the most basic, most primal form of nourishment, and it's probably the most enjoyable, to cook for your family at that level. And I think it's interesting because that's probably why I got into cooking, because I primarily like to eat, and I think many good chefs say that if you don't like to eat, what's the point of the game? And I primarily would prefer to eat rather than cook. and sharing a meal is something which is very important to me. You know, I think cooking for others and then sharing that meal with them is one of the great pleasures of what we do. And to be at home and cook like that is really, that's the ultimate.
You cook on a higher level, like the menu we're going to have tomorrow night.
Yeah.
It's a whole different creativity.
Oh, absolutely.
aspect.
And it's got a very, you know, it's funny, I think we do a type of cuisine which is at its core very simple. It's based on the best product that we have access to, and it's treated in the most almost responsible way. We don't try to break things down too much. We just try and highlight the essence of things, or you know, give you a purity of what's available. And that, funnily enough, has a very thin line between being very good or very bad.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it can be average. I think it can be amazing, or it just doesn't hit the mark at all. It's got a really fine line to play in there, and it's why when you cook it like that, you need to be really on all the time and really have a complete understanding of what you're doing, your objective, and to have extremely high standards and not let things leave your site or the kitchen without being correct, because you're going to have a dish tomorrow of essentially raw carrots from our garden with the skin on and probably some dirt attached to it. Now, that's unheard of in a restaurant of this nature, because chefs always have been about pulling things apart, you know what I mean? And I think it's sometimes takes courage to present dishes like that to people, and people sometimes don't understand where you're coming from.
Work with the sommelier. I mean, who goes first?
It always matches the food. I mean, I definitely have interest in some flavours within wine, and occasionally think about, you know, wouldn't that be nice to do a dish based on wine? You know, I think there's elements within. You know, I think a good example is in Can Roca in Spain. Now there's a dish of the, you know, oyster chablis, and it's a dish basically when you eat it, they don't let you drink the chablis, and then finally when you finish eating it, you then drink the chablis. And I've eaten this dish, and there's a point in time where your mind is so confused. Are you eating? Are you drinking? The flavour profiles are so perfect. You know, the match is so incredibly perfect. I think that's a very interesting concept. You know, I think again at that type of level, it's not just about nourishment; it's about some playfulness as well. You know?
Yeah.
But in general terms, we do food, and I do food quite almost alone, and just with a vision of the food, and then our very good sommeliers then match wines, or not wine. You know, I mean, we have a sake to one course, and then things to match to the food, to pair accompany the food. And we actually don't talk about wine matches. We talk about wine accompaniments, because I don't think all wines match all food, but they still go well together.
Right. And you do quite a bit of training.
We have an extensive cellar, and thankfully we get to see a lot of wine. I'm not sure if you call that training.
No, I didn't mean training with the wine. I meant training in the kitchen. I'm sorry, I wasn't clear.
Well, it's funny, you know, I think you are continually at this level hopefully evolving. You know, I think evolution is a really important thing. I mean, things come up and down in cooking regularly. If you want to look at the whole competitiveness thing, which I don't, but that exists as well, about, you know, who's the best restaurant, who's doing the newest thing, who's doing the newest technique or whatever. So it's important to be aware of those things. But I don't think necessarily tomorrow, for example, you'll notice all the best hits of the world at the moment. We have a very unique, I think, individual style, and therefore have some of our own techniques which other restaurants wouldn't use. So in terms of the chefs learning those things, that's something which we're developing, and they learn as we go. It's sometimes interesting what's more important. A chef of 15 years of training in kitchens that you have no association with, or a chef of 3 months who's completely open and believes everything you say and will just learn your techniques. So I think you need a mixture of both. And I mean, currently we probably have more of the second state, you know, the second type, where young chefs, eager and very willing and interested in being here, learning brand new things for the first time, which I think is a really great way to work. As long as you've got a couple of anchors in the kitchen to keep people on their toes.
That's right. That's
you know.
right. Well, thank you
You're
very
welcome.
much.
No problem, Maralyn. It's nice to meet
And we're looking forward to experiencing your creations tomorrow night.
you.